Hey, what's up everyone? Today we're taking a look at a Japanese Star Wars licensee brochure from 1995 containing this very familiar branding from the era, which I've shown in previous videos on everything from t-shirts to comic book advertisements. Star Wars taking the galaxy by force. Starts off, it's a sort of a mix of English and Japanese, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, of course, and then we have a message from Lucas himself from June 1995. Basically goes in to say, look, you know, it's been 18 years or so since the original trilogy. They've turned into this transcendent sort of cultural phenomenon. What he wants to highlight, though, is that in that interim, even though he hints that there are going to be prequels that they're about to film in maybe 2 or 3 years, that there have been lots of books and comics that are sort of keeping the story going. So it's another cool bit of evidence that, yes, Lucas knew the EU existed, right, and even regarded it as, in some sense, doing the work of continuing the story for the next generation. And he sort of says what's going to be nice is that these prequels are going to come at a point when the people who grew up with the original are old enough now to sort of, in some sense, kind of pass the torch on to children who are going to, you know, hopefully sort of like take and run with the prequels, right? So that Star Wars is, you know, there for everyone sort of going forward, right? So that the original trilogy isn't just some distant memory, that it's sort of the beginning of this ongoing saga. But it's really cool that he sort of specifically references books and comics here. Next page, join the Force. Obviously, we have a scene from Hoth. And in Japanese here, we just have a very brief, condensed sort of rundown of the original trilogy. You know, that the young future Jedi Luke and all of his trials and tribulations and learning to become a Jedi and then ultimately sort of winning the day. Just a very, maybe the most condensed sort of summary of 3 films I've ever seen. This is fun, scouting the galaxy. We've got a cool shot here of lots of Star Wars goodies, lots of things I've even shown off previously in the channel. This is some old merchandise you could find back in the day. Obviously some toys, some things like this. Video games, you know, these should be familiar to probably everyone watching this. We've got the Jedi Prince series there. We've got Dark Forces. We've got some things back here that I've alluded to, Antioch Press items, in this case containing the iconic Glove of Darth Vader cover. But, you know, I've shown everything from Antioch, from like address books, notebooks, bookmarks, things like this. They had folders too. It's really funny. People forget that there are EU 3-ring binders out there, including some from the Shadows of the Empire era. More audiobooks. This was really popular back in the day. These like tin cans that would contain card sets, and some other fun sort of bits of EU here. This is neat too. Star Wars audio clips, fun little product. The radio dramas. So just a cool little snapshot of some EU content and merchandise from the era. And again, just basically highlights that you know, licensing is, I'm sort of like briefly trying to translate this here, sort of to paraphrase it, like basically like licensing for movies is now commonplace, but Star Wars was really the one that kind of kickstarted this whole enterprise. And again, they just want you to sort of know that, particularly for Japanese audiences, right, which this is a licensing catalog sort of aimed at, that, you know, these things have been very popular in North America and in Europe, but that here they are, there's a wealth of merchandise and other content to sell to Japanese audiences as well. Just, again, it's just basically highlighting that Star Wars sort of kind of help kickstart this thing. Got that wonderful branding again, Star Wars taking the galaxy by force. No other text here, just an iconic image. And then this is kind of fun, mythology for the space age. I guess for anyone who at 1995 wasn't already familiar, it's basically just a character key. So we've got Luke, Admiral Akbar, you know, so on and so forth. Darth Vader, as if you didn't already know, the Imperial Royal Guard. So kind of just a neat rundown of the saga. Again, this is all very sort of focused on both the original trilogy and those books and comics carrying the story forward. But here's where we sort of get into the future. And this is when it talks a bit about how in just a couple of years, we'll see the prequels, but that in the meantime, I think in 1997, which ultimately turned out to be true, a lot of info about the prequels at this time sort of missed the mark. You know, the prequels took a little bit longer than were planned at this stage or often advertised at this stage in 1995, but it does say 1997. We're going to get to these special edition releases in theaters, which is great. So another way to kind of keep the original series going, which is then going to kickstart the sort of the new era of the prequels. And finally, just some cool shots from that original trilogy. With information about the main Japanese licensee. I've shown stuff from them in previous videos, advertisements of theirs for their comic adaptations. 1995 Lucasfilm. May the force be with you. Anyway, that's it. More licensee content and everything else EU related in future videos. See you next time.